Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. I am sorry I'm running a little late today. The end of clinic it was just one of those days. And so I'm a few minutes behind, but I'm happy to join you and hope you enjoy this discussion. So, one of the things we use as a tool here at DMA Weight and Wellness is fasting, particularly intermittent fasting. So, periods of time where you don't eat. And that's basically what fasting is it's a period of time where you have no calorie intake. That's true fasting. Now, there are some programs out there that try to do this fasting mimicking thing, which essentially you're taking in very little calories and you're trying to get a mimic of the fasting or make your body think you're fasting while you're still eating. I tried one of those. I wore a continuous glucose monitor while I was wearing one of those, and it just didn't work for me. I was not truly fasting during that time. So, today we want to discuss a study that was published in June of 2024. So, it was a recent study, and it was published in JAMA, which is a very popular magazine. So, it is done in China. It was not done in the US, but people are people, and there's a lot of good research that comes out in China. The question that this study asked was, what is the effect of a 16-week intermittent fasting plan consisting of 2 non-consecutive days of fasting with 5 days of habitual intake per week? And they were looking at the change of A1C. They were looking at people with adults with early onset type 2 diabetes. So, when you fast in general, your blood sugar is allowed to drop down and it's allowed to kind of regulate. It's allowed to pull you, either your body pulls from the fat stores for energy at that point. Your body also cleanses itself of stored toxins and stored sugars in the liver. And I want you to think of it as nature's reset. So with this study, they're trying to see, does this idea of intermittent fasting, can it feasibly be used as an intervention for type 2 diabetes? So this study, like I said, is produced in JAMA, and I put the link to it there. It's a 5-2 intermittent fasting meal replacement diet and glycemic control for adults with diabetes. And this is a randomized clinical control trial. So a randomized clinical control trial is going to be one where it's the highest quality research, highest quality evidence. There's the least opportunity for bias in these studies, so you can trust these studies a little bit more. So the people in this study were adults only, so they did not look at kids. They were generally between the ages of 18 and 65. And to qualify, individuals had to have diabetes for no more than 1 year. So this was a early onset of diabetes. And they had to have had no diabetic medications over a 3-month period. Their BMI also had to be 24 or greater. So 24 is kind of the cutoff before we start to get into the overweight category, and 30 is when we start to enter the obese category. These people also had to have an A1C between 7 and 9. So they were, in fact, people with diabetes. The data was collected between November of 2020 and December of 2022, so fairly recent study. So the design was over 16 weeks. So they followed these individuals over 16 weeks. And then they also did a follow up with them 8 weeks later to kind of assess if there was ongoing benefits to these interventions. Everyone in this diet got kind of the standard of care nutritional and diet information. And I was interested to see if the standard of care nutritional diet and exercise information was about the same in China as it is here in America. There was a figure or a supplemental information with this study that laid it out. I went and looked at that, and the answer is yes. So it's essentially the same plan that the American Diabetes Association puts out. That's where the carbohydrate intake is between 50 and 60% of the diet, protein is between 15 and 20% of the diet, and fat is less than 30% of the diet. So essentially a lower fat, higher carb diet with the general exercise recommendations. They did split it up a little bit more than we do here in America, looking at if you're a sedentary person, a moderately active person, a highly active person. So there were 3 groups. They had this group of individuals. They randomly divided them into 3 groups. And the first one was what they called the 5-2 group with meal replacements. So, what that meant is that these people 2 days a week, but not consecutive days. So, they could do like a Monday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Saturday. They picked their days as long as they weren't consecutive days. But on those 2 days, they consumed one meal replacement. And for women, that meal replacement was 500 calories or less. And for men, it was 600 calories or less. And they did not consume any other food. So to me, it sounds almost like a 16 or 18-hour intermittent fast during that day with a very, very small intake of calories. And then on the other 5 days, the individuals could choose what they wanted to eat for breakfast and for lunch. And remember, they were given dietary education on saying this is what you should kind of be eating, but individuals were allowed to choose. And dinner time, they were asked to consume that same meal replacement as they did on that other plan. So overall, a calorie restricted plan with some intermittent fasting 2 days a week. The second group was given metformin, and this is a commonly used medication for diabetes. It's considered first-line therapy for diabetes after diet and exercise or diet and lifestyle changes. They started individuals at 500 milligrams twice a day, and if it was tolerated, they increased it to the total of 2 grams a day, and that's the max dose of that medication. And then the third arm of this study took Jardiance, which is what we call an SGLT2 inhibitor. So this medicine works basically by taking sugars that you eat and binding them and forcing them out through your urine. So you're not absorbing them into your bloodstream. And this dose was 10 milligrams once a day. So you had the 5-2 meal replacement plan, the metformin plan, and the Jardiance plan. What kind of outcomes were they looking for? They were looking first at A1C and looking for the change in A1C. That was their primary outcome they were looking for. The second thing they were looking for were changes in things like weight, BMI or body mass index, blood pressure, fasting glucose, measurements of the waist and the hip, fasting insulin levels, C-peptide, and HOMA-IR, which are all measurements of insulin resistance or to kind of assess the severity of the disease. What are the outcomes? So in 16 weeks, when you look at the three groups and their primary outcome, which was the A1C reduction, you had in the meal replacement, the 5-2, a decrease of 1.9% A1C. That's pretty good. Almost 2 whole percentage points dropped by having one meal replacement a day and then 2 days a week doing some intermittent fasting where you're only doing 1 meal a day and it's a very low calorie meal replacement. The metformin group did have a decrease in A1C, and it was about 1.6%, so less than the meal replacement group. And the Jardiance group had 1.5, so even less than the metformin and even less than the meal replacement group. They did note that on the 5-2 plan, so the 2 days of prolonged fasting and then trading out one meal replacement, that those people had a greater A1C reduction. More people in that group got their A1C under 7, which is considered better under control than those in the metformin or the Jardiance group. They followed that group specifically 8 weeks later to look to see what the outcomes were. And 72 out of the 94 people in that group on that meal replacement group maintained an A1C under 6.5. Note that to maintain an A1C under 6.5 for a set amount of time is actually putting you back in the non-diabetic range. So 72 out of 94 people that were doing some intermittent fasting just 2 days a week early on in their diabetes essentially reversed their diabetes. That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. So let's look at the secondary outcomes. The endpoints for weight loss was a big one. The meal replacement group, the 5-2 people, lost about 9.7 kilograms. The metformin people did lose some weight. It was 5.5 kilograms. And the Jardiance group lost 5.8 kilograms. So everybody lost weight with this intervention, but the people who were not taking medicine and just changing some things about their diet lost more weight. They also noticed that people in the 5-2 group, so remember, one meal replacement a day, 5 days a week, and 2 days a week, not back to back, where you had essentially an intermittent fasting period and only one meal replacement a day, they showed greater reduction in their waist and hip measurements over the metformin and the Jardiance group. They also had lower blood pressure, lower triglycerides, and higher HDL than the other groups. Now, they did note that the fasting insulin and the other markers of insulin resistance, there wasn't a statistically significant change. There was improvement, but there wasn't a statistically different change between the three groups. So what does this mean? Well, actually, wait, I want to back up. Before I get to what does it mean, side effects. And I think this is a big one. This is the biggest point of the study. I can't believe I almost glanced over it. It must be the end of my crazy day for today. So in the meal replacement group, the 5-2 plan, one person complained of constipation. One person, a little bit of constipation, which is common with any nutritional change, especially one that's restricting intake where you're making less poop. Okay, you had 8 people, 8 total, that complained of hypoglycemia. I can tell you, my clinical experience tells me that if you take people who are used to eating a whole lot of carbs and suddenly make them fast, well, their body's not used to that. They're going to have some hypoglycemia. So I think it's remarkable that only 8 people had low blood sugar. Now let's look at the metformin. These groups were kind of evenly split, so everybody is about the same. But in metformin, 26 people had gastrointestinal side effects that they complained of. It's pretty significant. They also had 8 people with hypoglycemia or low blood sugar effects. That's a whole lot more people than your 1 constipation and your 8 hypoglycemias. Okay, just saying. Now let's look at Jardiance. This medicine is being touted as not just a diabetes medicine. We are now giving this medication also to people with heart failure, trying to reduce heart failure. And yes, there are outcomes that are shown as good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying we're using it a lot and we have to be aware of the side effects that are there. So when you looked at the Jardiance group, you had 3 people that complained of urinary symptoms. And I can tell you this is pretty significant and very common with this medicine because remember, it takes the sugar that you eat and forces it out through your urine. Well, if you force it out through your urine, that means sugar is sitting down there in the urinary tract. Even when you wipe, you're getting dried sugar on your skin, which means you get yeast infections more, you get more UTIs. It's just a better breeding ground for bacteria. So they had 3 people with urinary symptoms in their group. They had 5 people with hypoglycemic episodes. 1 person had increased thirst and complained of it. But here's the kicker. They had 2 people in their group with severe symptoms, serious things that made them have to be hospitalized because of the medication. They were a severe rash, like rash head to toe. Now, it didn't say what this rash was, but these are known to increase yeast on the skin and also cause necrotizing or flesh dying kind of things. It's very rare, but it does happen, and it's pretty freaking severe. I mean, death of skin sounds pretty severe. So this person had a skin rash. I don't know if it was the dying flesh, but it was a pretty severe reaction enough to put them in the hospital. And the other one was elevated ketones. And we know that with these medications, they put you at risk for something called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a life-threatening condition specific to diabetic patients where the blood sugar gets out of control and their acid-base balance in their body, the things that help keep the body regulated, get all whack-a-mole, and it can cause very, very bad things. And these medicines are known to increase it. Once again, not a super common thing, but it definitely happens. So yeah, scary stuff with that one that can happen. So end of the day, early stage diabetes using this 1 meal replacement a day, 5 days a week, and 2 days of intermittent fasting. So longer, think 16 hours of fasting and 1 meal, or 18 hours or even 20 hours of fasting, 1 meal a day, this low calorie meal replacement improves glycemia, improves blood pressure, improves triglycerides, improves HDL, has greater weight reduction than 2 highly prominent diabetes medications with less side effects. That's a pretty big deal. It's a really big deal. So my question is, what if they had really fasted? What if 2 days a week they had no meal replacement? They just really did water and black coffee only and truly fasted their body. What if on the other 5 days a week, they didn't just eat whatever they wanted to and had one meal replacement shake a day, that they actually had increased protein intake above that 15 to 20%, which is known to stabilize blood sugars? And what if they, reduced the processed foods and the carbs? My guess is you would have had even bigger weight loss, even better glycemic control, and you probably wouldn't have had hypoglycemic episodes, at least not after the first week or two after their body has adjusted. Maybe that'll be the next study, but I think this is a step in the right direction that is showing that pretty minimal life changes, lifestyle interventions, dietary interventions can make a huge difference. And at the end of the day, it looks like fasting is a better intervention than some medications. Um, that's pretty big. That's pretty good. All right. So that's it for today. You look at the study and you tell me what you think. And Brian, I agree with you. It would have been a home run. They would have been amazed at the changes that was happening if they had truly fasted and truly, increased their protein and made some bigger interventions. And you're right, it would have been cheaper. So low carb for better health is like 5 weeks away, guys. It is coming up so quickly, and I am looking forward to it. We're down to like 9 tickets left. So if you haven't got a ticket and you want to attend in person August 23rd and 24th at Montgomery Bell State Park here in Tennessee, please go online and get your ticket today. Don't wait. That is www.lc4bh.com. That's www.lc4bh.com. Remember, when we sell out, not if, but when we sell out, we will be donating, or I will be donating $1,000 to the American Diabetes Society, which is a new society being formed by Dr. Kim Berry and several other prominent people that want to get accurate information to patients with diabetes, because everyone deserves to have a normal blood sugar and to have accurate information that is actually going to help them heal and not just manage or remain in diabetes with some okay numbers. So help us donate. Go see us in person. If you can't come in person, but you still want to see Dr. Berry, Miss Nisha, you want to see Zane Griggs, you want to see Dr. Chris Palmer, you want to see Amy Berger, you want to see Dr. Mark Cucuzella, you can get just the recordings and watch them at your leisure. It's going to be high quality recordings and it's like $25. So go get that too. I can't wait to see you guys next week. I'm looking forward to our continued discussion. Until then, stay healthy.